The fence line. I'd always imagined moving to the suburbs would mean quiet mornings, freshly cut grass, and friendly neighbors exchanging smiles over barbecue grills. After 15 years as a software engineer, saving every bonus and promotion I earned, that dream finally became real. My name is Malcolm Reese, and last spring, I bought a 4-bedroom colonial at 128 Hawthorne Lane in Maple Grove Estates. It was a tree-lined neighborhood with tidy sidewalks and a reputation for long-time residents and tight-knit community life. The realtor emphasized stability and established families. What sold me wasn't the kitchen, or even the home office I converted from the spare room, it was the backyard. South-facing. Spacious. Ideal for the in-ground pool I'd always promised myself. By July, the pool was installed, a pristine 16 by 32 rectangle with a waterfall feature, LED lights, and a wraparound deck. It was more than luxury, it was a milestone. I didn't grow up with much, and I always dreamed of having a space where my nieces and nephews could splash around during the summer. The first month was bliss. I met the Rodriguezes across the street. Isabel brought over a steaming dish of enchiladas the day I moved in. The Sings next door welcomed me with mango lassi and an invitation to their daughter's graduation party. I felt like I belonged. But not everyone was so warm. My property backed up to 130 Hawthorne, home to Eleanor Brantley, a silver-haired woman in her 60s who'd lived there for over 3 decades. While most neighbors smiled and waved, Eleanor only watched, arms folded, lips pinched. When the pool crew arrived, she stormed over demanding to see permits and barking about noise, even though the workers were well within their allowed hours. When I tried to introduce myself, her handshake was limp. Her eyes scanned my face and then the lawn, as though she were trying to find something out of place. "This used to be a peaceful neighborhood," she said pointedly, the word peaceful thick with implication. "I'm looking forward to being part of the community," I replied. "Really excited to be here, Ms. Brantley." "It's Mrs. Brantley," she corrected. "My husband passed, but I keep the name." "I understand. My condolences. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to ask." She gave a sharp nod. "Just keep the noise down with that pull. Some of us still value quiet." Then she turned and walked off, muttering while checking the property line markers along the fence. At the time, I chalked it up to an older neighbor who didn't like change. I couldn't have known then that was just the first shot in a Cold War she was about to declare. The weeks passed. I settled in. My routine was simple: wake up early, work from my home office, swim a few laps before dinner. On weekends, I occasionally invited friends over, nothing wild, just grilling and laughter. One Saturday, while sipping coffee on the deck, I noticed Eleanor with a tape measure in her hand, pacing the fence line. When we made eye contact, she didn't look away. "Morning, Mrs. Brantley," I called out. "Beautiful day." "Your pump is too loud," she said flatly. "I can't focus on my gardening." I was taken aback. I actually selected the quietest model they offer. "But I'll have the company come out to inspect, just in case." She gave a tight sniff. "And your fence leans onto my property." "At least an inch." That wasn't true. I'd had the fence installed professionally, complete with a property survey. But before I could respond, she turned and stormed back, clutching her ruler like a weapon. It didn't stop there. She began inspecting the fence 3 times a day: 8 a.m., 2 p.m., and 7 p.m. clipboard in hand, sometimes taking photos, other times using a level to check alignment. Once, I caught her pointing a decibel meter toward my equipment. "Everything okay over there?" I asked one evening. "Just documenting," she said, not looking up. "Documenting what?" "Violations. Someone needs to maintain standards." I've reviewed the HOA guidelines. I'm fully compliant. If you have concerns, I'm happy to discuss them. She smiled thin and cold. You people always think the rules don't apply to you. I froze. Mrs. Brantley, I said carefully. I followed every regulation. If you'd like to talk specifics, I'm available. We'll see about that. The next morning, I got a visit from Garrett Price, the HOA representative. He looked uncomfortable. Hey, Malcolm. Sorry to bother you. We received 17 complaints from your neighbor in the last week. 17? He nodded. Noise, fence height, pool color, chemical levels, nothing we haven't seen before. He inspected everything. No violations. Before he left, he leaned in. Between us, she's run off at least 3 families. The Wongs, the Hernandez couple on Maple, and a pair of newlyweds down the road. It's a pattern. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went through local forums and Facebook groups. Sure enough, her name popped up in threads with vague warnings. The targets? All families of color or same-sex couples. It was clearer now, she didn't just dislike me. She didn't want me there. I installed cameras. Not paranoia protection. They captured everything, Eleanor inspecting my yard, leaning over the fence, even collecting water samples from my pool in small vials. One night, I came home to find her whispering to another neighbor in front of my house. As I approached, the other woman walked away quickly. Evening, Mrs. Brantley, I said. Everything all right? Just warning neighbors about property values, she said, voice saccharine. Pools attract the wrong element. I turned to the other woman. Hi, I'm Malcolm Reese. I don't think we've met. Barbara. Barbara Mayfield, she said, shaking my hand. Don't mind Eleanor. Your renovations are beautiful. Eleanor huffed and retreated. That night, as I floated under the pool lights, I realized I couldn't ignore it anymore. She wasn't going to stop. And I wasn't going to leave. So I documented everything. Then came Memorial Day weekend. I planned a small barbecue with 5 friends. Nothing crazy. I even printed out the HOA guidelines to make sure we wrapped by 9 p.m. well ahead of the 10 p.m. curfew. We were in the pool playing volleyball when I heard sirens. You're kidding, I muttered. 2 officers arrived. One young and twitchy. The other older and composed. Noise complaint, the younger said. I'm Sergeant Burns, the older one added. And you are? Malcolm Reese. This is my home. We're just having a barbecue, 6 of us total. Mind if we take a look? Of course. They walked into the backyard. My friends stood awkwardly, drinks in hand. Music played at a modest volume. This is it? The younger officer asked. This is it, I confirmed. Burns read from his notes. Over 20 individuals, suspected drug use, threatening behavior. I laughed without humor. I have security cameras. You're welcome to view the footage. Burns glanced at Eleanor's house. That her? I nodded. She's called the HOA 17 times. She's been on our radar. Too many false calls. He lowered his voice. Keep documenting. If this escalates, you've got options. The cops left. My guests packed up soon after. The mood was ruined. As they were leaving, Eleanor approached the fence. I hope you learned your lesson, she said loud enough for them to hear. Mrs. Brantley, I said, walking over. Filing false reports is serious. I reported what I saw, which didn't exist. My cameras recorded everything. Audio too. A flicker of doubt crossed her face. Well, I have nothing to hide. Good. Because neither do I. That night, I downloaded the footage. I began compiling everything into a folder: complaints, emails, footage. I wasn't backing down. Then came the HOA letter, an emergency meeting. No details, just vague concerns. Garrett confirmed Eleanor had pulled strings with Harold Ellis, the HOA president. This is political, Garrett said. She's playing the system. Bring documentation. And bring a witness. I asked Mrs. Rodriguez. I'll do better than that, she said. You're not going alone. At the meeting, the room was packed. Eleanor sat near Harold, who looked uncomfortable as he opened the session. Patricia launched into a slideshow, accusations of unsafe pool storage, noise, unauthorized landscaping. Then, a blurry photo from Memorial Day labeled ongoing disruption. I stood and passed out my evidence. Here's my HOA-approved pool chemical storage. Noise readings from my decibel meter. Landscaping was from the previous owner, who was also targeted by Mrs. Brantley. And this, I said, playing a clip, is the police verifying no violations. One by one, neighbors spoke up. Mrs. Rodriguez, the Singhs, Barbara, even the Thompsons from across the block. Stories poured out about Eleanor's surveillance, her thinly veiled prejudice, her intimidation tactics. Harold looked shaken. I think we've heard enough, he said. The board will issue a decision within the week. Outside, Eleanor pulled me aside. You think you've won? I've defended this neighborhood for 30 years. I'm not going anywhere, I said. We can live peacefully, or not. But I'm staying. We'll see, she hissed. Days later, the board dismissed all complaints. They instituted a new policy: photographic evidence required for formal reports. Eleanor was quiet for a while. Too quiet. Then came the fertilizer. I was swimming when I noticed a chemical smell. White granules lined the pool's edge. I called emergency pool services $3.75. They confirmed the contamination was deliberate. My cameras had caught her early morning, gloves on, dumping fertilizer along the fence. I filed a police report. Officer Daniels confirmed reckless endangerment. Later, Eleanor sauntered over. Pool troubles? She asked. Mrs. Brantley, I have footage of you dumping chemicals. The police are investigating. I was fertilizing my garden. At 5 in the morning, only along my pool? You can't prove it. The footage will. You could have hurt someone. No one would have been hurt if people like you didn't move in. There it was, raw, open. I called Sergeant Burns and updated my insurer. Neighbors stopped by that evening with meals, advice, and support. But Eleanor wasn't done. She filed false health reports about my pool. Complaints about mosquitoes. All debunked. I contacted Aisha, my civil rights attorney friend. We filed for a restraining order. It was granted, 50 feet. Then came the lawsuit for harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. I didn't seek much. Just damages and a permanent injunction. When Eleanor's son arrived, a calm, soft-spoken man named Greg looked exhausted. She's getting help, he told me. Psych evaluation confirmed early-stage dementia. Paranoia. I'm moving her near me. She won't be returning. He handed me a settlement offer. It was more than fair. I dropped the suit. Eleanor's house sold to a biracial couple with twins. The fence she once patrolled was torn down and replaced with an open garden. I brought them lasagna. We talked on their porch. Seems there was drama before, the husband said. Ancient history, I smiled. Now, I swim in peace. Children take lessons in my pool. The HOA is diverse and inclusive. The scars are the rebut fading. Sometimes, as the sun sets over the water, I think of Eleanor not in anger, but with hope that she's found the peace she couldn't give others. Because this neighborhood? It belongs to all of us now. And I'm not leaving.